Welcome, crew. Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Sunday, September 4th, Monday, September 5th for those of you across the pond and beyond. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, and welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm your host, TessaTNT, and I am broadcasting from the Mile High Clubhouse tonight. Hope you guys are having an awesome Labor Day weekend. Be safe out there on those bikes, even if you're really good at riding. You never know what the other people on the road are going to do. It's pretty scary. And look out for deer and cows. We've had a couple friends pass that way. Not a good way to go out, I would say. So if you're listening to us live right now, you're listening to us on Spreaker.com. You may also find us on KPNL Radio, which you can find on KPNL Radio at kpnl-db.com. If you want to listen to us in your free time, whether you're working it, or working out, you may also find us once again on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Castbox, Tumblr, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podcast Chaser, Podvine, as well as Amazon. If you don't mind, go on and mosey on over to our YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Make sure you like any video that you've listened to, and leave any comments, your thoughts on the show, any questions you might have, or perhaps let us know any guests that you would like us to try and book for a show in the future. So I was gonna pull Mr. Troy Bacon in here, but totally spaced. Didn't really plan anything or any topics to discuss, and didn't get his ad out there. So we're going to reschedule that perhaps for later this month, or maybe even this coming month. But yeah, we got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about with Troy. He's very knowledgeable about so many different topics. So it's always a great time having him on here. So what we shall be doing instead is story time with me. It's a lot easier that way, I suppose. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having him on the show in the future. So I believe we are, looks like chapter 25, Dr. Seward's Diary. 11 October evening. Jonathan Harker has asked me to note this, as he says he is hardly equal to the task, and he wants an exact record kept. I think that none of us were surprised when we were asked to see Mrs. Harker a little before the time of sunset. We have of late come to understand that sunrise and sunset are her times of peculiar freedom, when her old self can be manifested without any controlling force subduing or restraining her, or inciting her to action. This mood or condition begins some half hour or more before actual sunrise and sunset, and it lasts till either the sun is high or while the clouds are still aglow, with the rays streaming above the horizon. At first there is a sort of negative condition, as if some tie were loosened, and then the absolute freedom quickly follows. When, however, the freedom ceases, the change back or relapse comes quickly, proceeding only by a spell of warning silence. Tonight, when we met, she was somewhat constrained and bore all the signs of an internal struggle. I put it down myself to her making a violent effort at the earliest instant she could do so. A very few minutes, however, gave her complete control of herself. Then motioning her husband to sit beside her on the sofa, where she was half reclining, she made the rest of us bring chairs up close. Taking her husband's hand in hers, she began. We are all here together in freedom, for perhaps the last time. I know, dear, I know that you will always be with me in the end. This was to her husband, whose hand had, as we could see, tightened up upon hers. In the morning we go out upon our task, and God alone knows what may be in store for any of us. You are going to be so good to me as to take me with you. I know that all the brave, earnest men can do for a poor weak woman whose soul perhaps is lost. No, no, not yet, but it's at any rate at stake. You will do. But you must remember that I am not as you are. There's a poison in my blood, in my soul, which may destroy me, which must destroy me, unless some relief comes to us. Oh, my friends, you know, as well as I do, that my soul is at stake. And though I know there is one way out for me, you must not, and I must not take it. She looked appealingly at us all in turn, beginning and ending with her husband. "What is that way?" asked Van Helsing in a hoarse voice. "What is that way which we must not, may not, take?" "That I may die now, either by my own hand or that of another, before the greater evil is entirely wrought. I know, and you know, that were I once dead, you could and would set free my immortal spirit, even as you did my poor Lucy. Were death, or the fear of death, the only thing that stood in the way, I would not shrink to die here, now, amidst the friend who loved me. But death is not all. I cannot believe that to die in such a case, when there is hope before us and a better task to be done, is God's will. Therefore, I on my part give up here the certainty of eternal rest, and go out into the dark where may be the blackest things that the world or nether world holds." We were all silent, for we knew instinctively that this was only a prelude. The faces of the others were set, and Harker's grew and grey. Perhaps he guessed better than any of us what was coming. She continued, "This is what I can give into the hotch-pot." I could not but note the quaint legal phrase which she used in such a place, and with all seriousness. "What will each of you give? Your lives, I know." She went on quickly. "That is easy for brave men. Your lives are God's, and you can give them back to Him. But what will you give me?" She looked again questioningly. About this time avoided her husband's face. Quincy seemed to understand. He nodded, and her face lit up. "Then I shall tell you plainly what I want, for there must be no doubtful matter in this connection between us now. You must promise me, one and all, even you, my beloved husband, that should the time come, you will kill me." "What is that time?" The voice was Quincy's, but it was low and strained. "When you shall be convinced that I am so changed that it is better that I die, that I may live. When I am thus dead in the flesh, then you will, without a moment's delay, drive a stake through me and cut off my head, or do whatever else may be wanting to give me rest." Quincy was the first to rise after the pause. He knelt down before her, and taking her hand in his, said solemnly, "I'm only a rough fellow, who hasn't, perhaps, lived as a man should to win such a distinction. But I swear to you, by all that I hold sacred and dear, that, should the time ever come, I shall not flinch from the duty that you have set us. And I promise you, too, that I shall make all certain, for if I am only doubtful, I shall take it till that time has come." "My true friend," was all she could say amid her fast-falling tears, as bending over she kissed his hand. "I swear the same, my dear Madam Mina," said Van Helsing. "And I," said Lord Godalming. Each of them in turn kneeling to her to take the oath. I followed myself. Then her husband turned to her, one-eyed, and with a greenish pallor, which subdued the snowy whiteness of his hair, and asked, "And must I, too, make such a promise, O my wife?" "You too, my dearest," she said, with infinite yearning of pity in her voice and eyes. "You must not shrink. You are nearest and dearest in all the world to me, our souls are knit into one. for all life and all time. Think, dear, that there have been times when brave men have killed their wives and their womankind to keep them from falling into the hands of the enemy. Their hands did not falter any the more because those they loved implored them to slay them. It is men's duty towards those whom they love in such times of sore trial. And oh, my dear, if it is so to be that I must meet death at any hand, let it be at the hand of him that loves me best. Dr. Van Helsing, I have not forgotten your mercy, and poor Lucy's case to him who loved. She stopped with a flying blush and changed her phrase. To him who had best right to give her peace, if that time shall come again, I look to you to make it a happy memory of my husband's life, that it was his loving hand which set me free from the awful thrill upon me. Again I swear, came the professor's resonant voice. Mrs. Harker smiled positively. As with a sigh of relief, she leaned back and said, "And now one word of warning, a warning which you must never forget. This time, if it ever come, may come quickly and unexpectedly, and in such case you must lose no time in using your opportunity. At such a time I myself might be nay, if the time ever comes, shall be leagued with your enemy against you. One more request." She became very solemn as she said this. "It is not vital and necessary like the other, but I want you to do one thing for me, if you will." We all acquiesced, but no one spoke. There was no need to speak. "I want you to read the burial service." She was interrupted by a deep groan from her husband. Taking his hand in hers, she held it over her heart and continued, "You must read it over me some day. Whatever may be the issue of all this fearful thing, it will be a sweet thought to all or some of us. You, my dearest, will, I hope, read it, for then it will be in your voice and my memory forever, come what may." "But, oh, my dear one," he pleaded, "death is afar off from you." "Nay," she said, holding up a warning hand, "I am deeper in death at this moment than if the weight of an earthly grave lay upon me." "Oh, my wife, must I read it?" he said before he began. "It would comfort me, my husband," was all she said, and he began to read, when she had got the book ready. How can I, how could anyone, tell of the strange scene, its solemnity, its gloom, its sadness, its horror, and withal its sweetness? Even a skeptic, who can see nothing but a travesty of bitter truth in anything holy or emotional, would have been melted to the heart had he seen that little group of loving and devoted friends kneeling round that stricken and sorrowing lady, or heard the tender passion of her husband's voice, as in one tone, so broken with emotion that often he had to pause. He read the simple and beautiful service for the burial of the dead. I I cannot go on. Words and voice fail me. She was right in her instinct. Strange as it all was, bizarre as it may hereafter seem, even to us who felt its potent influence at the time, it comforted us much, and the silence which showed Mrs. Harker became relapse from her freedom of soul did not seem so full of despair to any of us as we had dreaded. 15 October, Varna. We left Charing Cross in the morning of the 12th, got to Paris the same night, and took the places secured for us in the Orient Express. We travelled night and day, arriving here at about 5 o'clock. Lord Godalming went to the consulate to see if any telegram had arrived for him, while the rest of us came on to this hotel, the Odysseus. The journey may have had incidents. I was, however, too eager to get on, to care of them. Until the Serena Catherine comes into port, there will be no interest for me in anything in the wide world. Thank God, Mina is well and looks to be getting stronger. Her color is coming back. She sleeps a great deal. Throughout the journey, she slept nearly all the time. Before sunrise and sunset, however, she is very wakeful and alert, and it has become a habit for Van Helsing to hypnotize her at such times. At first some effort was needed, and he had to make many passes. But now she seems to yield at once, as if by habit, and scarcely any action is needed. He seems to have the power at these particular moments to simply will, and her thoughts obey him. He always asks her what she can see and hear. She answers to the first, "Nothing, all is dark," and to the second, "I can hear waves lapping against the ship and the water rushing by. Canvas and cordage strain and masts and yards creak. The wind is high. I can hear it in the shrouds, and bow throws back the foam. It is evident that the Serena Catherine is still at sea, hastening on her way to Varna." Lord Godalming has just returned. He had 4 telegrams, one each day since we started, and all to the same effect, that the Serena Catherine had not been reported to Lloyd's from anywhere. He had arranged to see he will get from us will not count for much. We think that we shall not have much trouble with officials or seamen, all well supplied with money. We have only to make sure that the ship cannot come into port between sunset and sunrise without our being warned, and we shall be safe. Judge Moneybag will settle this case, I think. 16 October. Mina's report still the same, lapping waves and rushing water, darkness and favoring winds. We are evidently in good time, and when we hear of Serena Catherine, we shall be ready. As she must pass the Dardanelles, we are sure to have some report. 17 October. Everything is pretty well fixed now, I think, to welcome the Count on his return from his tour. Godalming told the shippers that he fancied that the box sent aboard might contain something stolen from a friend of his, and got a half consent that he might open it at his own risk. The owner gave him a paper telling the captain to give him every facility in doing whatever he chose on board the ship, and also a similar authorization to his agent at Varna. We have seen the agent, who is much impressed with Godalming's kindly manner to him, and we are all satisfied that whatever he can do to aid our wishes will be done. We have already arranged what to do in case we get the box open. If the Count is there, Van Helsing and Seaward will cut off his head at once and drive a stake through his heart. Morris and Godalming and I shall prevent interference, even if we have to use the arms which we shall have ready. The professor says that if we can do so, treat the Count's body, it will soon after fall into dust. In such case, there would be no evidence against us in case any suspicion of murder were aroused. But even if it did not, we should stand or fall by our act, and perhaps some day this very script may be evidence to come between some of us and a rope. For myself, I should take the chance only too thankfully if it were to come. We mean to leave no stone unturned to carry out our intent. We have arranged with certain officials that the instant that the Serena Catherine is seen, we are to be informed by a special messenger. 24 October. A whole week of waiting, daily telegrams to Godalming, but only the same story. Not yet reported. Mina's hypnotic answer is unvaried, lapping waves, rushing water, and creaking masts. October 24th. Telegram. Rufus Smith, Lloyd's, London, to Lord Godalming, care of H.B.M., Vice-Consul Varna. Serena Catherine reported this morning from Dardanelles. 24 October. How I miss my phonograph. To write diary with a pen is irksome to me, but Van Helsing says I must. We were all wild with excitement today when Olderman got his telegram from Lloyd's. I know now what men feel in battle when the call of action is heard. Mrs. Harker, alone of our party, did not show any signs of emotion. After all, it is not strange that she did not, for we took special care not to let her know anything about it, and we all tried not to show any excitement when we were in her presence. In old days she would, I am sure, have noticed, no matter how we might have tried to conceal it, but in this way she has greatly changed during the past 3 weeks. The lethargy grows upon her, and though she seems very strong and well, and is getting back some of her color, Van Helsing and I are not satisfied. We talk of her often. We have not, however, said a word to the others. It would break poor Harker's heart, certainly his nerve, if he knew that we had even a suspicion on the subject. Van Helsing examines, he tells me, her teeth very carefully, while she is in the hypnotic condition, for he says that so long as they do not begin to sharpen, there is no active danger of a change in her. If this change should come, it would be necessary to take steps. We both know what those steps would have to be, though we do not mention our thoughts to each other. We should neither of us shrink from the task, although it may be to contemplate. Euthanasia is an excellent and comforting word. I am grateful to whoever invented it. It is only about 24 hours sail from excuse me, the Dardanelles to here, at the rate that Serena Catherine has come from London. She would therefore arrive some time in the morning, but as she cannot possibly get in before then, we are all about to retire early. We shall get up at 1 o'clock, so as to be ready. 25 October, noon. No news yet of the ship's arrival. Mrs. Harker's hypnotic report this morning was the same as usual, so it is possible that we may get news at any moment. We men are all in a fever of excitement, except Harker, who is calm. His hands are as cold as ice, and an hour ago I found him wetting the edge of the great Gurkha knife, which he now always carries with him. It will be bad lookout for the Count if the edge of the kukri ever touches his throat, given by that stern ice-cold hand. Van Helsing and I were a little alarmed about Mrs. Harker today. About noon she got into a sort of lethargy, which we did not like. Although we kept silent to the others, we were neither of us happy about it. She had been resting all morning, so that we were the first glad to know that she was sleeping. When, however, her husband motioned casually that she was sleeping so soundly that he could not wake her, he went to her room to see for ourselves. She was breathing naturally, and looked so well and peaceful that we agreed that the sleep was better for her than anything else. Poor girl! She has so much to forget that it is so no wonder that she sleeps. If it brings oblivion to her, does her good. Later, our opinion was justified, for when after a refreshing sleep of some hours she woke up, she seemed brighter and better than she has been for days. At sunset she made the usual hypnotic report. Wherever he may be in the Black Sea, the Count is hurrying to his destination, to his doom. I trust. 26 October. Another day, and no tidings of the Tsarina Catherine. She ought to be here by now. That she is still journeying somewhere is apparent, for Mrs. Harker's hypnotic report at sunrise was still the same. It is possible that the vessel may be lying by at times for fog. Some of the steamers which came in last evening reported patches of fog both to north and south of the port. We must continue our watching, as the ship may now be signaling any moment. 27 October, noon. Most strange. No news yet of the ship we wait for. Mrs. Harker's report last night and this morning as usual. Lapping waves and rushing water, though she added that the waves were very faint. The Telegrams from London have been the same. No further report. Van Helsing is terribly anxious, and told me just now that he fears the Count is escaping us. He added significantly, I did not like the lethargy of Madam Mina's. Souls and memories can do strange things during trance. I was about to ask him more, but Harker just then came in, and he held up a warning hand. We must try tonight, at sunset, to make her speak more fully when in her hypnotic state. 28 October. Telegram. Rufus Smith, London, to Lord Godalming, care of HBM Vice Consul Varna. Irina Catherine reported entering Galatz at 1 o'clock today. Dr. Seward's Diary. October 28th. When the telegram came announcing the arrival in Galatz, I do not think it was such a shock to any of us as might have been expected. Crew did not know whence or how or when the bolt would come, but I think we all expected that something strange would happen. The delay of arrival at Varna made us individually satisfied that things would not be just as we had expected. We only waited to learn where the change would occur. None the less, however, was it a surprise. I suppose that nature works on such a hopeful basis that we believe against ourselves that things will be as they ought to be, not as we should know that they will be. Transcendentalism is beacon to the angels, even if it will be a will-o'-the-wisp to man. It was an odd experience, and we all took it differently. Van Helsing raised his hands over his head for a moment, as though in remonstrance with the Almighty. But he said not a word, and in a few seconds stood up with his face sternly set. Lord Godalming grew very pale and sat breathing heavily. I myself, half stunned, and looked in wonder at one after another. Quincy Morris tightened his belt with that quick movement which I know so well. In our old wandering days it meant action. Mrs. Harker grew ghastly white, so that the scar on her forehead seemed to burn. But she folded her hands meekly and looked up in prayer. Harker smiled, actually smiled, the dark, bitter smile of one who is without hope. At the same time his action belied his words, for his hands instinctively sought the hilt of the great kukri knife and rested there. "When does the next train start to Galatz?" said Dr. Van Helsing. "At 6:30 p.m. tomorrow morning." We all stared, for the answer came from Mrs. Harker. "How on earth do you know?" said Art. "You forget, or perhaps you do not know, but Jonathan does, and so does Dr. Van Helsing, that I am a train fiend. At some home in Exeter, I always used to make up the timetables, so as to be helpful to my husband. I found it so useful sometimes that I always make a study of the timetables now. I knew that if anything were to take us to Castle Dracula, we should go by Galatz, or at any rate through Bucharest. So I learned the times very carefully. Unhappily, there are not many learn, as the only train tomorrow leaves as I say." "Wonderful woman," murmured the professor. "Can't we get a special?" asked Lord Godalming. Van Helsing shook his head. "I fear not. This land is very different from yours or mine. Even if we did have a special, it would probably not arrive as soon as our regular train. Moreover, we have something to prepare. We must think. Now let us organize. You, friend Arthur, go to the train and get the tickets and arrange that all be ready for us to go in the morning. Do you, friend Jonathan, go to the agent of the ship and get from him letters to the agent in Galatz, with authority to make search the ship just as it was here. Quincy Morris, you see the vice-consul, and get his aid with his fellow in Galatz, and all he can do to make our way smooth, so that no time be lost when over the Danube. John will stay with Madam Mina and me. We shall consult, for so if time be long, you may be delayed. It will not matter when the sun set, since I am here with Madam to make report. And I, said Mrs. Harker brightly, and more like her old self than she had been for many days, shall try to be of use in all ways, and shall think and write for you as I used to do. Something is shifting from me in some strange way, and I feel free, freer than I have been of late. The three young men looked happier at the moment, as they seemed to realize the significance of her words. But Van Helsing and I, turning to each other, met each a grave and troubled glance. We said nothing at the time, however. When the three men had gone out to their tasks, Van Helsing asked Mrs. Harker to look up the copy of the diaries and find him the part of Harker's journal at the castle. She went away to get it. When the door was shut upon her, he said to me, "We mean the same. Speak out. There's some change. It is a hope that makes me sick, for it may deceive us." "Quite so. Do you know why I asked her to get the manuscript?" "No," I said, "unless it was to get an opportunity of seeing me alone." "You are in part right, friend John, but only in part. I want to tell you something, and oh, my friend, I'm taking a great and terrible risk, but I believe it is right." In the moment when Madame said those words, that arrest both our understanding, an inspiration come to me. In the trance of 3 days ago, the Count sent her his spirit and read her mind, or more like he took her to see him in his earth box in the ship with water rushing, just as it go free at rise and set of sun. He learned then that we are here, for she hath more to tell in her open life, with eyes to see and ears to hear, than he, shut as he is in his coffin box. Now he make his most effort to escape us. At present he want her not. He is sure, with his so great knowledge, that she will come at his call, but he cut her off, take her as he can do, out of his own power, that so she can come not to him. Ah, there I have hope that our man-brains, that have been of man so long, and that have not lost the grace of God, will come higher than this child-brain, that lie in his tomb for centuries, that grow not yet to our stature, and that do only work selfish and therefore small. Here comes Madam Mina, not a word to her of her trance. She know it not, and it would overwhelm her and make despair just when he want all her hope, all her courage, and most we want all her great brain, which is trained like man's brain, but is of sweet woman, and have a special power which the Count give her, and which he may not take away altogether, though he think not so. Hush, let me speak, and you shall learn. Oh, John, my friend, we are in awful straits. I fear as I never feared before. We can only trust the good God. Silence, here she comes. I thought that the professor was going to break down and have hysterics, just as he had when Lucy died. But with a great effort he controlled himself, and was in perfect nervous poise, when Mrs. Harker tripped into the room, bright and happy-looking, and, in the doing of work, seemingly forgetful of her misery. As she came in, she handed a number of sheets of typewriting to Van Helsing. He looked over them gravely. His face brightened as he read. Then, holding the pages between his finger and thumb, he said, "Friend John, to you with so much of experience already, and you too, dear Madam Mina, that are young, here is a lesson. Do not fear ever to think. A half-thought has been buzzing often in my brain, but I fear to let him lose his wings. Here now, with more knowledge, I go back to where the half-thought come from, and I find that he be no half-thought at all. he be a whole thought, though so young that he is not yet strong to use his little wings. Nay, like the ugly duck of my friend Hans Andersen, he be no duck thought at all, but a big swan thought, and sailed nobly on big wings, when the time come for him to try them. See, I read here what Jonathan have written. The other of his race who, in a later age, again and again, brought his forces over the great river into Turkeyland, who, when he was beaten back, came again and again and again, though he had to come alone from the bloody field where his troops were being slaughtered, since he knew that he alone could ultimately triumph. What does this tell us? Not much, no? The Count's child thought, see nothing, therefore he speaks of free. Your man thought, see nothing, my man thought, see nothing, till just now. No, but there comes another word from someone who speak without thought, because she too know not what it might mean. Just as there are elements which rest, yet when in nature's course they move in their way and they touch, then poof, and there comes a flash of light, heavens wide, that blind and kill and destroy some, but that show up all earth below, not leagues and leagues. Is it not so? Well, I shall explain. To begin, have you ever studied the philosophy of crime? Yes and no. You, John, yes, for it is a study of insanity. You know, Madamina, for crime touch you not but once. Still, your mind works true, and argues not a particulari ad universal. There is this peculiarity in criminals. It is so constant in our countries at all times that even police, who know not much from philosophy, come to know it empirically, that it is. That is to be empiric. The criminal always work at one crime, that is the true crime, who seems predestined to crime, and who will of none other this criminal as not full man-brain. He is clever and cunning and resourceful, but he be not of man's stature as to brain. He be of child-brain and much. Now this criminal of ours is predestined to crime also. He too have child-brain, and it is of the child to do what we have done. The little bird, the little fish, the little animal learn not by principle, but empirically, and when he learn to do, then there is to him the ground to start from to do more. Das Bosto, said Archimedes, give me the fulcrum, and I shall move the world. To do once is the fulcrum, whereby child-brain become man-brain, and until we have the purpose to do more, we continue to do the same again every time, just as we have done before. Oh, my dear, I see that your eyes are opened, and that to you the lightning flash show all their leads. For Mrs. Harker began to clap her hands, and her eyes sparkled. He went on. Now you shall speak. Tell us, two dry men of science, what you see those so bright eyes. He took her hand and held it while she spoke. His finger and thumb closed on her pulse, as I thought instinctively and unconsciously as she spoke. The Count is a criminal, and of criminal type. Nordau and Lombroso would say, and so classify him. And qua criminal, he is of imperfectly formed mind. Thus, in a difficulty, he has to seek resource and habit. His past is a clue, the one page of it that we know, and that from his own lips tells that once before, when what Mr. Morse would call a tight place, he went back to his own country from the land he had tried to invade, and thence, without losing purpose, prepared himself for a new effort. He came again better equipped for his work, and won. So he came to London to invade a new land. He was beaten, and when all hope of success was lost, and his existence in danger, he fled back over sea to his home, Just as formerly he had fled back over the Danube from Turkland. "Good, good. Oh, you so clever lady," said Van Helsing, enthusiastically, as he stopped and kissed her hand. A moment later he said to me, as calmly as though we had been having a sick-room consultation, 72 only, and in all this excitement I have hope." Turning to her again, he said with keen expectation, "But go on, go on. There is more to tell if you will. Be not afraid. John and I know. I do in any case, and shall tell you if you are right. Speak without fear." "I will try to, but you will forgive me if I seem egotistical." "Nay, fear not. You must be egotist, for it is of you that we think." "Then, as he is criminal, he is selfish, and as his intellect is small and his action is based on selfishness, he confines himself to one purpose. That purpose is remorseless, as he fled back over the Danube, leaving his forces to be cut to pieces. So now he is intent on being safe, careless of all. So his own selfishness frees my soul somewhat of the terrible power which he acquired over me on that dreadful night. I felt it, oh, I felt it. Thank God for his great mercy, my soul is freer than it has been since that awful hour. And all that haunts me is a fear lest, in some trance or dream, he may have used my knowledge for his ends." The professor stood up. "He has so used your mind, and by it he has left us here in Varna, whilst the ship that carried him rushed through enveloping fog at the Galatz, where doubtless he had made preparation for escaping from us. But his child mind only saw so far, and it may be that, as ever is in God's providence, the very thing that the evil-doer must reckon on for his selfish goods turns out to be his chiefest harm. The hunter is taken in his own snare, as the great psalmist says. For now that he thinks he is free from every trace of us all, and that he has escaped us with so many hours to him, then his selfish child brain will whisper him to sleep. He thinks, too, that as he cut himself off from knowing your mind, there can be no knowledge of him to you. There is where he fell. That terrible baptism of blood which he gives you makes you free to go to him in spirit, as you have as yet done in your times of freedom. When the sun rise and set, at such times you go by my volition, and not by his, and this power, to good of you and others, you have won from the suffering at his hands. This is now all more precious, that he know it not, and to guard himself have even cut himself off from his knowledge of our where. We, however, are not all selfish, and we believe that God is with us through all his blackness and these many dark hours. We shall follow him, and we shall not flinch, even if we peril ourselves, that we become like him. Friend John, this has been a great hour, and it have done much to advance us on our way. You must be scribe and write him all down, so that when the others return from their work you can give it to them. Then they shall know as we do. And so I have written it whilst we wait for return, and Mrs. Harker has written with her typewriter in all since she brought the MS to us. Dr. Seward's Diary, 29 October. This is written in the train for Varna to Galatz. Last night we all assembled a little before the time of sunset. Each of us had done his work as well as he could. So far as thought and endeavor and opportunity go, we are prepared for the whole of our journey, and for our work when we get to Galatz. When the usual time came round, Mrs. Harker prepared herself for her hypnotic effort, and after a long and more strenuous effort on the part of Van Helsing than has been usually necessary, she sank into trance. Usually she speaks on a hint, but this time the professor had to ask her questions, and to ask them pretty resolutely. Before we could learn anything, at last her answer came. "I can see nothing. We are still. There are no waves lapping, but only a steady swirl of water softly running against the hawser. I can hear men's voices calling near and far, and the roll and creak of oars in the rowlocks. Gun is fired somewhere. Echo of it seems far away. There is tramping of feet overhead, and ropes and chains are dragging along. What is this? There is a gleam of light. I can feel the air blowing upon me." Here she stopped. She had risen, as if impulsively, from where she lay on the sofa, and raised both her hands, palms upwards, as if lifting a weight. Van Helsing and I looked at each other with understanding. Quincy raised his eyebrows slightly, and looked at her intently, whilst Harker's hand instinctively closed round the hilt of his kukri. There was a long pause. We all knew that the time when she could speak was passing, but we felt that it was useless to say anything. Suddenly she sat up, and as she opened her eyes said sweetly, "Would none of you like a cup of tea? You must all be so tired." We could only make her happy, and so acquiesced. She bustled off to get tea. When she had gone, Van Helsing said, "You see, my friends, he is close to land. He has left his earth chest, but he has yet to get on shore. In the night he may lie hidden somewhere, but if he be not carried on shore, or if the ship do not touch it, he cannot achieve the land. In such case he can, if it be in the night, change his form, and can jump or fly on shore, as he did at Whitby. But if the day come before he get on shore, then, unless he be carried, he cannot escape. And if he be carried, then the customs men may discover what the box contains. Thus, in fine, if he escape not on shore tonight, or before dawn, there will be the whole day lost to him. We may then arrive in time, for if he escape not at night, we shall come on him in daytime, boxed up and at our mercy, for he dare not be his true self, awake and visible, lest he be discovered." There was no more to be said, so we waited in patience until the dawn, at which time we might learn more from Mrs. Harker. Early this morning we listened with breathless anxiety for her response in her trance. The hypnotic stage was even longer in coming than before, and when it came, the time remaining until full sunrise was so short that we began to despair. Van Helsing seemed to throw his whole soul into the effort, at least in obedience to his will she made reply. "All is dark. I hear lapping water level with me, and some creaking as of wood on wood, to pause, and the red sun shot up. We must wait till to-night." And so it is that we all travelling towards Galatz in an agony of expectation. We are due to arrive between 2 and 3 in the morning, but already at Bucharest we are 3 hours late, so we cannot possibly get in until well after sun-up. Thus, we shall have 2 more hypnotic messages from Mrs. Harker. Either or both may possibly throw more light on what is happening. Later. Sunset has come and gone. Fortunately, it came at a time when there was no distraction, for had it occurred whilst we were at a station, we might not have secured the necessary calm and isolation. Mrs. Harker yielded to the hypnotic influence even less readily than this morning. I am in fear that her powers reading the Count's sensations may die away, just when we want it most. It seems to me that her imagination is beginning to work. While she has been in the trance hitherto, she has confined herself to the simplest of facts. If this goes on, it may ultimately mislead us. If I thought that the Count's power over her would die away equally with her power of knowledge, it would be a happy thought. But I am afraid that it may not be so. When she did speak, her words were enigmatical. Something is going out. I can feel it pass me like a cold wind. I can hear far off confused sounds, as men talking in strange tongues, fierce falling water, and the howling of wolves. She stopped, and a shudder ran through her, increasing in intensity for a few seconds, till, at the end, she shook as though in a palsy. She said no more, even in answer to the professor's imperative questioning. When she woke from the trance, she was cold and exhausted and languid, but her mind was all alert. She could not remember anything, but asked what she had said. When she was told, she pondered over it deeply for a long time, and in silence. 30 October, 7 a.m. We are near Galance now, and I may not have time to write later. Sunrise this morning was anxiously looked for by us all, knowing of the increasing difficulty of recurring in hypnotic trance. Van Helsing began his passes earlier than usual. They produced no effect, however, until the regular time, when she yielded with a still greater difficulty, only a minute before the sun rose. The professor lost no time in his questioning. Her answer came with equal quickness. All is dark. I hear the water swirling by, level with my ears, and the creaking of wood on wood. Cattle low far off, and there is another sound, a queer one like. She stopped and grew white and whiter still. Go on, speak, I command you, said Van Helsing in an agonized voice. At the same time there was despair in his eyes, for the risen sun was reddening even Mrs. Harker's pale face. She opened her eyes, and we all started as she said sweetly and seemingly with the utmost concern, "Oh, Professor, why ask me to do what you know I can't? I don't remember anything." Then, seeing the look of amazement on our faces, she said, turning from one to the other, "What have I said? What have I done? I know nothing, only that I was lying here half asleep and heard you say, 'Go on, speak, I command you.' It seems so funny to hear you order me about, as if I were a bad child." "Oh, Madam Mina," he said sadly, "it is proof, if proof be needed, of how I love and honor you, when a word for your good, spoken more earnest than ever, can seem so strange, because it is to order her whom I am proud to obey. The whistles are sounding. We are nearing Galatz. We are on fire with anxiety and eagerness." On that note, boys and girls, we are going to go to our first music break. On this break, we are going to be listening to Mr. Jeff Hilliard from Los Angeles, California. He is going to be singing Consensual Sex Van, Abandon, Finger Bang Your Day, and Multitude. And then we have Cockroach from the UK with We Play House. And yeah, that's it for this music break. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Do you wanna go for a ride in my consensual sex van? Do you wanna go for a ride in my consensual sex van? Let me take you far away from all this huff and puff. There will be nothing in between.
Just get in the van.
Left here alone, just a shadow of my erection on the wall. Why won't you answer my calls? I gave you my all with a never-ending train wreck, and you feel like you're drowning in a sea of regret, with a bit of oppression pressing down on your neck. It hurts so bad when your overwhelming hatred kills your heart's desire, and reality starts looking like a dumpster fire. You start bitching to me, but you're preaching to the choir. You don't need to be so mad, 'cause sometimes we hurt, sometimes we cry, sometimes we're sure there's no reason to try. When the whole world goes completely insane, open your heart, stand up and sing. I'm gonna finger bang my day. Yeah, yeah, I'll finger bang my day. That's right. You gotta make the choice to give it all you've got, and make your day moan with pleasure, really make it hot, because your day deserves a lover that pulls out the stops. Come on, it's not so hard, 'cause sometimes we hurt, sometimes we cry, sometimes we're sure there's no reason to try. When the whole world blows up in our face, what else could we do but stand up and sing? I'm gonna finger bang my day. Yeah, yeah, finger bang my day.
Hey, what are we really doing? We can't live in a world that has this much hate. We have to get honest with ourselves. We have to take stock in what our part is in all of this madness. We have to let go, and we focus on giving love, setting that intention. And each and every single one of us gets up every day with the intention to give love. And we do it. We go out there and we give love every single day. Each one of us gets out there and makes love to our day, giving our day a multiple orgasm. The whole world will be orgasmic for the rest of eternity.
Sometimes we hurt, sometimes we cry, sometimes we're sure there's no reason to try. When the whole world is fucking insane, we open our hearts, stand up and sing. I'm gonna finger bang my day. Finger bang my day. Finger bang my day. Let's open our hearts, stand up and sing. I'm gonna finger bang my day. Yeah, yeah, finger bang my day.
Drop a can it, drip, drip, drip. Drop a can it, drip, drop a can it, drip.
I got all the moves, got that multitude. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long, fuck that. Check these molar moves, you need a multitude. I can do no wrong, back of the head long, never gonna cut it.
All these hookers sweet on me, look at them chasing me, showing me that ass, and a bang up snatch. I do this shit for free, go down your mama till 3. She's taking selfies with the mullet like it's history. How can I maneuver you with that pussy, dude? You sit like Buddha waiting on it to come to you. My lines are straight to the point, she shows me gratitude. So what's your latitude? Let's adjust your attitude. Head with a alligator, double dually Lamborghini, all up in a silly little yellow polka dot bikini.
I got all the moves, I got that multitude. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long, fuck that.
Head with a alligator, double dually Lamborghini, all up in a silly little yellow polka dot bikini.
Check these molar moves, you need a multitude. I can do no wrong, back of the head long, never gonna cut it.
Head with a alligator, double dually Lamborghini, all up in a silly little yellow polka dot bikini. You're like the butt of a butter knife cutting up panini. So climb back in your kangaroo pouch like a rolling
genie. These moves are hot, these locks I got. This power cannot be disputed and it can't be bought. So you can find me in the studio with all these thoughts. You wanna buy my style, but you can't be what you're not, neighbor.
I got more than moves, I got that multitude. You think it's wrong, back of the head too long, fuck that. Check these molar moves, you need a multitude. I can do no wrong, back of the head long, never gonna cut it. Got that motherfucking mullet. You wanna touch it?
Yeah. Next time you come around here with your bitch ass, just remember how my mullet makes your hoes pussy drip, drip, drip.
I got molar moves, I got that multitude. You think it's wrong, back of the head too long, fuck that. Check these molar moves, you need a multitude. I can do no wrong, back of the head long, never gonna cut it. I got molar moves, I got that multitude. You think it's wrong, back of the head too long, fuck that. Check these molar moves, you need a multitude. I can do no wrong, back of the head long, never gonna cut it. Never gonna cut it. Never gonna cut it.
Drip, drip,
Molar moves,
Just a molar, bitch.
molar moves,
drip, drip.
molar moves. Never gonna cut it.
We play house. We play house. We play house. We play house.
Welcome back, Wapham crew. We're gonna be continuing on with story time with me, TessaTNT. I don't know if you just heard that. My nose just squealed. So I just I just blew my nose on break. And it's really hot in here. I hate that my fan is so loud because it's really, really sweaty and uncomfortable. And my goodness. Kind of looking forward to fall weather and the coolness of it. It's gonna be pretty nice, pretty nice. Plus, Halloween. What are you guys gonna do this year for Halloween? not sure what I'm gonna do. It's on Monday, so I'm pretty sure they're gonna be having trick-or-treating either that Friday or Saturday here. So we might do our Halloween on one of those days. Hopefully it's a Friday so I can go, because, I don't know, maybe I'll just do a replay for that Saturday or something, I'm not sure. Not quite sure yet. Alright, let's continue on. Miss Mina Harker's Journal. 30 October. Mr. Morris took me to the hotel where our rooms had been ordered by telegraph, he being the one who could best be spared, since he does not speak any foreign language. The forces were disturbed much as they had been at Verna, except that Lord Godalming went to the Vice-Consul, and his rank might serve as an immediate guarantee on some sort of official. We being in extreme hurry, Jonathan and the 2 doctors went to the shipping agent to learn particulars of the arrival of the Tsarina Catherine. Later, Lord Godalming has returned. The council is away, and the vice-consul sick, so the routine work has been attended to by a clerk. He was very obliging, and offered to do anything in his power. There we saw the captain, Donaldson by name, who told us of his voyage. He never had so favourable a run. Man, he said, but it made us afeard, for we expected that we should have to pay for it with some rare piece of ill luck, so as to keep up the average. It's no canny to run frae London to the Black Sea with a wind ahint ye, as though the deil himself were blowing on yourself for his own purpose, and by the time we could no spare thing. Gin we were nigh a ship, or a port, or a headland, a fog fell on us and travelled with us, till when after it had lifted, and we looked out, the dale, a thing could we see. We ran by Gibraltar without being able to signal, until we came to the Dardanelles, and had to wait to get our permit to pass. We never were without hail or aught. At first I inclined to strike off sail, and beat about until the fog was lifted, but whilst I thought that if the deal was minded to us getting into the Black Sea quick, he was like to do it whether we would or no. If we had a quick voyage, it would be no to all miscredit with the owners, or no hurt to our traffic, and the old man, who had served his ain purpose, would be sent for grateful to us for no hindering him. The mixture of simplicity and cunning, of superstition and commercial reasoning, aroused Van Helsing, who said, "Mine friend, that devil is more clever than he is thought by some, and we know when he meet his match." Skipper was not displeased with the compliment, and went on. When we got past the Bosphorus, the men began to grumble. Some of them, the Romanians, came and asked me to heave overboard a big box, which had been put on board by a queer-looking old man just before we had started for London. I'd seen him spear at the fellow, and put out the 12 fingers when they saw him, the guard against the evil eye. Man, the superstition of foreigners is perfectly ridiculous. I sent them by boat, their business pretty quick, but as just after a fog closed in on us, I felt a wee bit as they did anent something, though I wouldn't say it was again the big box. Well, on we went, and as the fog didn't let up for 5 days, I loosed and let the wind carry us, for if the gale wanted to get somewheres, well, he would fetch it up a reef, and if it didn't, well, in deep water all the time. And 2 days ago, through the fog, we found ourselves just in the river opposite Glatz. The Romanians were wild and wanted me, right or wrong, to take out the box and fling it in the river. I had to agree with them about it with a handspike, and when the last of them rose off the deck with his head in hand, I convinced them that, evil eye or no evil eye, the property and the trust of my owners were better in the hands than in the river do not. They had, mind ye, taken the box on the deck ready to fling in, and as it was marked Glatz via Varna, I thought I'd let it lie till we discharged the port and get rid of it altogether. We didn't do much clearing that day, and had to remain in the night at anchor. Well, in the morning, raw and early, an hour before sunup, a man came aboard with an order written to him from England to receive a box marked for one Count Dracula. Sure enough, the matter was one ready to his hand. He had his papers a read, and, glad as I was to be rid of the damned thing, for I was beginning to my soul to feel uneasy at it. If the Dale did have any luggage aboard the ship, I'm thinking it was none other than that same. What was the name of the man who took it? Asked Dr. Van Helsing with restraining eagerness. I'll be telling you quick, he answered, and stepping down to his cabin, produced a receipt signed Emmanuel Hildesheim. Bergenstrasse 16 was the address. We found it out that this was all the captain knew, so with thanks we came away. Found Hildesheim in his office, a Hebrew of rather the Adelphi type, with a nose like a sheep and a fez. His arguments were pointed with the specie, we doing the punctuation, and with a little bargaining he told us what he knew. This turned out to be simple but important. He had received a letter from Mr. Deville of London, telling him to receive, if possible, before sunrise, so as to avoid Vile of London telling him to receive, so as to avoid customs, a box which would arrive at Galatz in the Tsarina Catherine. And this he was to give to the port, and give to a certain Petrov Skinsky, who dealt with Slovaks, who traded down the river to the port. He had been paid for his work by an English banknote, which he had duly cashed for gold at the Danube International Bank. When Skinsky had come to him, he had taken him to the ship and handed over the box, so as to save porterage. That was all he knew. We then sought for Skinsky, but were unable to find him. One of his neighbors, who did not seem to bear him any affection, said that he had gone away 2 days before. No one knew whither. This was corroborated by his landlord, who 2 days before no one knew whither, and who had received by message the key of the house together with the rent due in English money. This had been between 10 and 11 o'clock last night. We were at a standstill again. Whilst we were talking, one came running and breathlessly asked out that the body of Skinsky had been found inside the wall of the churchyard of St. Peter, and that the throat had been torn open as if by some wild animal. Those we had been speaking with ran off to see the horror, and the woman crying out, "This is the work of a Slovak." We hurried away, lest we should have been in some way drawn into the affair, and so detained. As we came home, we could arrive at no definite conclusion. We were all convinced that the box was on its way by water to somewhere, but where that might be we would have to discover. With heavy hearts we came home to the hotel to Mina. When we met together, the first thing was to consult as to taking Mina again into the confidence. Things are getting desperate, and it is at least a chance, though a hazardous one. As a preliminary step, I was released from my promise to her. Mina Harker's Journey. 30 October evening. They were so tired and worn out and dispirited that there was nothing to be done till they had some rest, so I asked them all to lie down for half an hour whilst I should enter everything up to the moment. I feel so grateful to the man who invented the traveller's typewriter, and to Mr. Morris for getting this one for me. I should have felt quite astray doing the work if I had to write with a pen. It is all done, poor dear, dear Jonathan. What he must have suffered, what must he be suffering now? He lies on the sofa hardly seeming to breathe, and his whole body appears in collapse. His brows are knit, his face is drawn with pain. Poor fellow! Maybe he is thinking, and I can see his face all wrinkled up with the concentration of his thoughts. Oh, if I could only help it all! I shall do what I can. I have asked Dr. Van Helsing, and he has got me all the papers that I have not yet seen. Whilst they are resting, I shall go over all carefully, and perhaps I may arrive at some conclusion. I shall try to follow the professor's example, and think without prejudice on the facts before me. I do believe that under God's providence I have made a discovery. I shall get the maps and look over them. I am more than ever sure that I am right. My new conclusion is ready, so I shall get our party together and read it. They can judge it. It is well to be accurate, and every minute is precious. Mina Harker's memoranda, entered in her journal. Ground of inquiry. Count Dracula's problem is to get back to his own place. He must be brought back by someone. This is evident, for, had he the power to move himself as he wished, he could go either as man or wolf or bat or in some other way. He evidently fears discovery or interference in the state of helplessness in which he must be, confined as he is between dawn and sunset in his wooden box. B. How is he to be taken? Here, a process of exclusion may help us. By road, by rail, by water? 1. By road. There are endless difficulties, especially in leaving a city. There are people, and people are curious and investigate. A hint, a surmise, a doubt as to what might be in the box would destroy him. B. There are, or there might be, customs and octroi officers to pass. C. His pursuers might follow. This is his greatest fear, and in order to prevent his being betrayed, he has repelled, so far as he can, even his victim, me. 2. By rail. There is no one in charge of the box. It would have to take its chance of being delayed, and delayed would be fatal, with enemies on the track. True, he might escape at night, but where would he be left? In a strange place with no refuge that he could fly to. This is not what he intends, and he does not mean to risk it. 3. By water. Here is the safest way in one respect, but with most danger in another. On the water he is powerless except at night. Even then he can only summon fog and storm and snow and his wolves. But where he wrecked, the living water would engulf him. Helpless, he would indeed be lost. He could have the vessel drive to land, but if it were unfriendly land, wherein he was not free to move, his position would still be desperate. We know for the record that he was on the water, so what we have to do is to ascertain what water. The first thing is to realize exactly what he has done as yet. We may then get a light on what his later task is to be. Firstly, we must consider that he did in London as part of his general plan of action when he was pressed for moments and had to arrange as best he could. Secondly, we must see, as well as we can surmise it from the facts we know of, what he has done here. As to the first, he evidently intended to arrive at Glatz and sent envoys to Varna to deceive us, lest we should ascertain his means of exit from England. His immediate and sole purpose then was to escape. The proof of this is the letter of instructions sent to Emanuel Hindlesham. Clear and take away the box before sunrise. There is also the instruction to Petrov Skinsky. This we must only guess at, but there must have been some letter or message since Skinsky came to Hindlesham. That, so far, his plans were successful, we know. The Tsarina Catherine made a phenomenally quick journey, so much so that Captain Donelson's suspicions were aroused, but his superstition, united with his canniness, played the Count's game for him, and he ran with his favoring wind through fogs and all till he brought up blindfold at Galatz. The Count's arrangements were well made, as he proved. Handelsheim cleared the box, took it off, and gave it to Skinsky. Skinsky took it, and here we lose the trail. We only know that the box is somewhere in the water, moving along. The customs and the octroi, if there be any, have been avoided. Now we come to what the Count must have done after his arrival on land at Galatz. The box was given to Skinsky before sunrise. At sunrise, the Count could appear in his own form. Here we ask why Skinsky has chosen at all to aid in the work. In my husband's diary, Skinsky is mentioned as dealing with the Slovaks who trade down the river to the port, and the band's remark that the murder was the work of a Slovak showed the general feeling against his class. The Count wanted isolation. My surmise is this, that in London the Count decided to get back to his castle by water, as the most safe and secret way. He was brought from the castle by Zgani, and probably they delivered their cargo to Slovaks, who took the boxes to Varna, for there they were shipped for London. Thus the Count had knowledge of the persons who could arrange this service. When the box was on land, before sunrise or after sunset, he came out from his box, met Skinsky, and instructed him what to do as to arranging the carriage of the box up the river. When this was done, and he knew that all was in train, he blotted out his traces, as he thought, by murdering his agent. I have examined the map and find that the river most suitable for the Slovaks to have ascended is either the Pruth or the Sereth. I read in the typescript that in my trance I heard cows low and water swirling, level with my ears, and the creaking of wood. The Count in his box then was on a river in an open boat, propelled probably either by oars or poles, for the banks are near, and it is working against stream. There would be no such sound if floating downstream. Of course, it may not be either the Sereth or the Pruth, but we may possibly investigate further. Now of these two, the Pruth is the more easily navigated, but the Sereth is at Funda, joined by the Bistritza, which runs up round the Borgo Pass. The loop it makes is manifestly as close to Dracula's castle as can be got by water. Mina Harker's journal continued. When I had done reading, Jonathan took me in his arms and kissed me. The others kept shaking me by both hands, and Van Helsing said, "Oh, dear Madam Mina is once more our teacher. Her eyes have seen where we were blinded. Now we are on the track once again, and this time we may succeed. Our enemies is at his most helpless, and if we can come on him by day on the water, our task will be over. He has to start, but he is powerless to hasten, as he may not leave his box, lest those who carry him may suspect. For them to suspect would be to prop them to throw him in the stream where he perish. This he knows and will not. Now, men, to our council of war, for here and now we must plan what each and all shall do." "I shall get a steam launch and follow him," said Lord Godalming, "and I horses to follow on the bank, lest by chance he lands," said Mr. Morris. "Good," said the Professor, "both good. But neither must go alone. There must be force to overcome force, if need be. The Slovak is strong and rough, and he carries rude arms." All the men smiled, for amongst them they carried a small arsenal. Said Mr. Morris, "I've brought some Winchesters. They're pretty handy in a crowd, and there may be wolves." The Count, if you remember, took some other precautions. He made some requisitions on others that Mrs. Harker could not quite hear or understand. "We must be ready at all points," Dr. Seward said. "I think I had better go with Quincy. We have been accustomed to hunt together, and we two, well armed, will be a match for whatever may come along. You must not be alone, Art. It may be necessary to fight the Slavics and a chance thrust, for I don't suppose these fellows carry guns, would undo all our plans. There must be no chances this time. We shall not rest until the Count's head and body have been separated, and we are sure that he cannot reincarnate. He looked at Jonathan as he spoke, and Jonathan looked at me. I could see that the poor dear was torn about in his mind. Of course he wanted to be with me, but then the boat service would most likely be the one which would destroy the vampire. Why did I hesitate to write the word? He was silent a while, and during his silence Dr. Van Helsing spoke. Friend Jonathan, this is to you for twice reasons. First, because you are young and brave and can fight, and all energies may be needed at the last, and again, that it is your right to destroy him, that which was wrought such woe to you and yours. Be not afraid for Madam Mina. She will be my care, if I may. I am, and yours. I am old, my legs are not so quick to run as once, and I am not used to ride so long or to pursue as need to be, or to fight with lethal weapons, but I can be of other service. I can fight in other way, and I can die, if need be, as well as younger men. Now let me say that what I would is this, while you, my Lord Godalming, and friend Jonathan, go in your so swift little steamboat up the river, and whilst John and Quincy guard the bank where perchance he might be landed, I will take Madam Mina right into the heart of the enemy's country, whilst the old fox is tied in his box floating on the running stream whence he cannot escape to land, where he dares not raise the lid of his coffin box, lest his Slavic carriers should in fear leave him to perish. We shall go in the track where Jonathan went, from Bistritz over the Borgo, and find our way to the castle of Dracula. Here Madam Mina's hypnotic power will surely help, and we shall find our way, all dark and unknown otherwise. After the first sunrise, when we near that fateful place, there is much to be done, and other places to be made sanctified, so that the nest of vipers be obliterated. Here Jonathan interrupted him hotly. Do you mean to say, Professor Van Helsing, that you would bring Mina in her sad case, and tainted as she is, with that devil's illness right into the jaws of his death trap? Not for the world, not for heaven or hell. He became almost speechless for a minute, and then went on. Do you know what the place is? Have you seen that awful den of hellish infamy, with the very moonlight alive with the grisly shapes, and every speck of dust that whirls in the wind, a devouring monster in embryo? Have you felt the vampire's lips upon your throat? Here he turned to me, and his eyes lit on at my forehead. He threw up his arms with a cry, Oh my God, what have we done? To have this terror upon us. And he sank down on the sofa in a collapse of misery. The professor's voice, as he spoke in clear, sweet tones which seemed to vibrate in the air, calmed us all. Oh, my friend, it is because I would save Madam Mina from the awful place that I would go. God forbid that I should take her into that place. There is work, wild work, to be done there, that her eyes may not see. We men here, all save Jonathan, have seen with our own eyes what is to be done before the place can be purified. Remember that we are in terrible straits if the Count escape us this time, and he is strong and subtle and cunning. He may choose to sleep in for a century, and then in our own dear time, he took my hand, would come to him to keep him company, and would be as those others to you, Jonathan saw. You have told us of their gloating lips. You heard their ribald laugh as they clutched the moving bag that the Count threw to them. You shudder, and well may it be. Forgive me that I make you so much pain. But it is necessary, my friend. It is not a dire need, for which I am giving, if need be, my life. If it were that anyone went into the place to stay, it is I who would have to go to keep them company. Do as you will, said Jonathan, with a sob that shook him all over. We are in the hand of God. Later. Oh, it did me good to see the way that these brave men worked. How can women help loving men when they are so earnest and so true and so brave? And too, it made me think of the wonderful power of money. What can it not do when it is properly applied, and what might it do when basely used? I felt so thankful that Lord Godalming is rich, and that both he and Mr. Morris, who also has plenty of money, are willing to spend it so freely. For if they did not, our little expedition could not start, either so promptly or so well equipped, as it will within another hour. It is not 3 hours since it was arranged what part each of us was to do. Now Lord Godalming and Jonathan have a lovely steam launch, with steam up, ready to start at a moment's notice. Dr. Seward and Mr. Morris have half a dozen beautiful horses well appointed. We have all the maps and appliances of various kinds that can be had. Professor Van Helsing and I are to leave by the 11:40 train tonight for Veresti, where we are to get a carriage to drive to Borgo Pass. We're bringing a good deal of ready money, as we are to buy a carriage and horses. We shall drive ourselves, for we have no one whom to buy a carriage and horses. We shall drive ourselves, for we have no one whom we can trust in this matter. The professor knows something of a great many languages, so we shall get on all right. We have all got arms, even for me a large bore revolver. Jonathan would not be happy unless I was armed like the rest. Alas, I cannot carry one arm that the rest do. The scar on my forehead forbids that. Dr. Van Helsing comforts me by telling me that I am fully armed as there may be wolves. The weather is getting colder every hour, and there are snow flurries which come and go as warnings. Later, I took all the courage to say good-bye to my darling. We may never meet again. Courage, Mina. The professor is looking at you keenly. His look is a warning. There must be no tears now, unless it may be God that will let them fall in gladness. Jonathan Harker's Journal, 30 October, night. I'm writing this in the light from the furnace door of the steam launch. Lord Godalming is firing up. He is an experienced hand at the work, as he had for years a launch of his own on the Thames, and another on the Norfolk Broads. Regarding our plans, we finally decided that Mina's guess was correct, in that if any waterway was chosen for the Count's escape back to his castle, the Sereth and then the Bistritza at its junction would be the one. We took it that somewhere about the 47th degree north latitude would be the place chosen for crossing the country between the river and the Carpathians. We have no fear of running at good speed up the river at night. There's plenty of water, and the banks are wide enough apart to make steaming, even in the dark, easy enough. Lord Godalming tells me to sleep for a while, as it is enough for the present for one to be on watch. But I cannot sleep. How can I, with the terrible danger hanging over my darling, and her going out into that awful place? My only comfort is that we are in the hands of God. Only for that faith it would be easier to die than to live, and so be quiet of all the trouble. Mr. Morris and Dr. Seward were off on their long ride before we started. They are to keep up the right bank far enough off to get on higher lands, where they can see a good stretch of the river and avoid following its curves. They have for the first stages 2 men to ride and lead their spare horses, 4 in all, so as not to excite curiosity. When they dismiss the men, which will be shortly, they will themselves look after the horses. It may be necessary for us to join forces. If so, they can mount our whole party. One of the saddles has a movable horn, and can be easily adapted for Mina if required. It is a wild adventure we are on. Here, as we are rushing along through the darkness, with the cold from the river seeming to rise up and strike us, with all the mysterious voices of the night around us, it all comes home. We seem to be drifting into unknown places and unknown ways, into a whole world of dark and dreadful things. Godalming is shutting the furnace door. 31 October. Still hurrying along, the day has come, and Godalming is sleeping. I am on watch. The morning is bitterly cold. The furnace heat is grateful, though. We have heavy fur coats. As yet, we have passed only a few open boats, but none of them had on board any box or package or anything like the size the one we seek. The men were scared every time we turned our electric lamp on them, and fell on their knees and prayed. 1 November evening. No news all day. We have found nothing of the kind we seek. We have now passed from the Bistritza, and we are wrong in our surmise. Our chance is gone. We have overhauled every boat, big and little. Early this morning, one crew took us for a government boat and treated us accordingly. We saw in this a way of smoothing matters, so at Fundu, where the Bistritz runs into the Sereth, we got a Romanian flag, which we now fly conspicuously. With every boat which we have overhauled since then, this trick has succeeded. We have had every defence shown to us, and not once any objection to whatever we chose to ask or do. Some of the Slovaks tell us that a big boat passed them, going at more than usual speed, as she had a double crew on board. This was before they came to Funda, so they cannot tell us whether the boat turned into the Bistritza or continued on there in the night. I am feeling very sleepy. The cold is perhaps beginning to tell upon me, and nature must have rest some time. Godalming insists that he shall keep the first watch. God bless him for all his goodness to poor dear Mina and me. 2 November morning. It is broad daylight. That good fellow would not be forgetting my trouble, and he would not wake me. He says it would have been a sin to you, for I slept so peacefully and was forgetting my trouble. It seems brutally selfish of me to have slept so long, and let him watch all night, but he was quite right. I am a new man this morning, and as I sit here and watch him sleeping, I can do all that is necessary, both as to minding the engine, steering, and keeping watch. I can feel that my strength and energy are coming back to me. I wonder where Mina is now, and Van Helsing. They should have got to Vercetti about noon on Wednesday. It would take them some time to get the carriage and horses, so if they have started and travelled hard, they would be about now at the Borgo Pass. God guide and help them. I am afraid to think what may happen. If we could only go faster, but we cannot. The engines are throbbing and doing their utmost. I wonder how Dr. Seward and Mr. Morris are getting on. There seem to be endless streams running down from the mountains into this river, but as none of them are very large at present, at all events, though they are terrible, doubtless, in winter, and when the snow melts, the horsemen may not have met much obstruction. I hope that before we get to Strasbourg, we may see them, for if by that time we have not overtaken the Count, it may be necessary to take counsel together on what to do next. Dr. Seward's Diary, 2 November. 3 days on the road, no news, and no time to write it if there had been, for every moment is precious. We have had only the rest needful for the horses, but we are both bearing it wonderfully. Those adventurous days of ours are turning up useful. We must push on. We shall never feel happy till we get the launch in sight again. 3 November. We heard at Funda that the launch had gone up to the Bistritza. I wish it wasn't so cold. There are signs of snow coming, and if it falls heavy it will stop us. In such case, we must get a sledge and go on, Russian fashion. 4 November. Today, we heard of the launch having been detained by an accident when trying to force a way up the rapids. The Slavic boats get up all right by aid of a rope and steering with knowledge. Some went up only a few hours before. Voltamine is an amateur fit himself, and evidently it was he who put the launch on trim again. Finally, they got up the rapids all right, and with local help, and are off on chase of fresh. I fear that the boat is not any better for the accident. The peasantry tell us that after she got up upon the smooth water again, she kept stopping every now and again, so long as she was in sight. We must push on harder than ever. Our help may be wanted soon. No, son, I'm doing my show. All right. He's cute.
Yeah, the cat got stuck in the bathroom.
Aw, poor guy.
And it took one light.
Okay, well, everybody heard that. So.
Oh, dang it.
Bye, boy. Mina Harker's Journal. 31 October. Arrived at Verest at noon. Professor tells me that this morning at dawn he could hardly hypnotize me at all, and all I could say was dark and quiet. He is off now buying a carriage and horses. He says that he will later on try to buy additional horses, so that we may be able to change them on the way. We have something more than 70 miles before us. The country is lovely and most interesting. If only we were here under different conditions. How delightful it would be to see it all. If Jonathan and I were driving through it alone, what a pleasure it would be to stop and see the people, and learn something of their life, and to fill our minds and memories with all the color and picturesqueness of the whole wide, beautiful country and quaint people. But alas! Later, Dr. Van Helsing has returned. He's got the carriage and horses. We are to have some dinner, and to start in an hour. The landlady is putting us up a huge basket of provisions. It seems enough for a company of soldiers. The professor encourages her, and whispers to me that it may be a week before we can get any food again. He has been shopping too, and has sent home such a wonderful lot of fur coats and wraps, and all sorts of warm things. There will not be any chance of our being cold. We shall soon be off. I'm afraid to think what may happen to us. We are truly in the hands of God. He alone knows what may be, and I pray him, with all the strength of my sad and humble soul, that he will watch over my beloved husband, that whatever may happen, Jonathan may know that I loved him and honored him more than I can say, and that my latest and truest thought will be always for him. All right, you guys. Well, that's going to do it for Bram Stoker's Dracula this evening. We're going to go on to our second music break, and that will be followed with some reading from Reddit. I think we're going to do something different than ghost stories this evening. We might do scary stories, or maybe if there's any alien abduction or any other stories like that, that'd be cool. Kind of a nice change of pace. Well, on that note, we are going to be listening to Jeff Hilliard from Los Angeles with Cockpit Hills, Silicone Wave, Good Life, and then Miss Mia Savage, who is our snowbird. She lives here in the Bayfield area, and she also flies back to Arizona when it gets cold, like the snowbird she is. So she's going to be singing Lumerian Crypto, and then we have Cockroach with ICU. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
You're a fool with nothing to offer. No one will ever believe you. They see you for what you are. You're just a fraud, a shell of a person. And now the marvelous spirit of penetrate the demon that has you. They enslave you to the depths of hate. I am the conqueror.
I just got a package, I can't wait to get home. I spent all day tracking the shipment on my phone, all that she was lacking. I ordered custom, I can't wait to get some. Take it to the bedroom, bitch is always nagging. Now I got the air, I send this bitch is packing. Going my way, I have a new attraction. Don't care what you say, it's better in every way. Now baby, it's time to play. We're gonna make us a tape and show everyone the way. Cause I'm going my way, riding up Silicon Way. I'm see on the game with my new real dog. I'm gonna play. Just second way to Mount Silicon Way. She is here to stay. She's my new real dog, and it's time to play. She don't need expensive date nights. Never talks back, I'm always right. Stuff it in her face with all my might. She don't even care, we don't ever fight. She never cries when I'm testing the suspension. We blow it up like it's fucking Armageddon. We make the videos because this is perfection. Look at this erection, I don't need protection. Cause I'm going my way, riding up Silicon Way. I'm see on the game with my new real dog. I'm gonna play. Just second way to Mount Silicon Way. She is here to stay. She's my new real dog, and it's time to play. With my new real dog, I'm gonna play. She's my new real dog, and it's time to play.
The woman of my dreams. Voulez-vous coucher avec moi?
Fais-moi l'amour.
Je suis amoureux.
Je pense toujours à
Enchanté,
tu es charmant.
ma chérie. Mon fruité dans une hostie. Ils étaient le nipple.
Tu es chaud. Fais-moi
It's like living on a super yacht, making love to a robot. It's like owning a football team, but having sex with a robot. It's like winning an Oscar and Emmy, a Grammy, when you're fucking a robot. It's like saving a family with a newborn from a fire, but you're fucking a robot.
Excuse me! Excuse me! You got a cigarette? Hey, you help a guy out with some spare change. Anything will do, man. Oh, God bless you. Can I just get your change? I missed the bus. I got these 6 right down the... I'm not an animal! Moving like a steak knife. This is the good life. Dancing in the moonlight. I wanna be inside of you. We got plenty to do till the 1:45. And I know you wanna ride my Cadillac. Don't give me no flack, I'll put you flat on your back.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for hanging out with us at We at Paradox Media on this hot and muggy Labor Day weekend. Hope you guys are having an awesome weekend so far. Tomorrow's Labor Day, therefore there shall be no labors. Most everybody's going to be off unless you work at like a fast food restaurant or, the gas station or something, which is unfortunate. I think everybody should get the day off. Anywho, so, like I said, I was looking around on Reddit to check out scary stories or UFOs or whatnot, and the UFO ones are mostly just like videos and pictures and stuff, which is really cool. But I want some stories. So I came across this page that is known as Conspiracy Commons. Now, there's all kinds of conspiracies out there. So this one that I'm going to read to you is the 25 rules of disinformation, and this is what you're up against. Number 1, hear no evil, see no evil. Sorry, my mic tried to fall. Speak no evil. Regardless of what you know, don't discuss it. If you are a public figure, news anchor, etc., if it's not reported, it didn't happen, and you never have to deal with these issues. 2, become incredulous and indignant. Avoid discussing key issues and instead focus on side issues which can be used to show the topic as being critical of some otherwise sacrosanct group or thing. This is also known as the how dare you gambit. 3, create rumor mongers. Avoid discussing issues by describing all charges, regardless of venue or evidence, as mere rumors and wild accusations. Other derogatory terms mutually exclusive of truth may work as well. This method works especially well with a silent press because the only way the public can learn of the facts are through such arguable rumors. If you can associate the material with the internet, use this fact to certify it a wild rumor from a bunch of kids on the internet, which can have no basis in fact. 4, use a straw man. Find or create a seeming element of your opponent's argument which you can easily knock down to make yourself look good and the opponent to look bad. Either make up an issue you may simply imply exists based on your interpretation of the opponent argument, situation, or select the weakest aspect of the weakest charges, amplify their significance, and destroy them in a way which appears to debunk all the charges, real and fabricated alike, while actually avoiding discussion of the real issues. 5, sidetrack opponents with name-calling and ridicule. This is also known as the primary attack, the messenger ploy, though other methods qualify as variants of that approach. Associate opponents with unpopular titles such as kooks, right-wing, liberal, left-wing, terrorists, conspiracy buffs, radicals, militia, racist, religious fanatics, sexual deviants, and so forth. This makes others shrink from support out of fear of gaining the same label, and you avoid dealing with issues. 6, hit and run. In any public forum, make a brief attack of your opponent or the opponent position and then scamper off before an answer can be fielded or simply ignore any answer. This works extremely well in internet and letters to the editor environments where a steady stream of new identities can be called upon without having to explain criticism. Reasoning, simply make an accusation or other attack, never discussing issues and never answering any subsequent response, for that would dignify the opponent's viewpoint. 7, question motives. Twist or amplify any fact that could be taken to imply that the opponent operates out of a hidden personal agenda or other bias. This avoids discussing issues and forces the accuser or the defensive. 8, invoke authority. Claim for yourself or associate yourself with authority and present your argument with enough jargon and minutiae to illustrate you are one who knows, and simply say it isn't so without discussing issues or demonstrating concretely why or inciting sources. Play dumb. No matter what evidence or logical argument is offered, avoid discussing issues except with denials. they have any credibility, make any sense, provide any proof, contain or make a point, have logic or support a conclusion, makes well for maximum effect. 10. Associate opponent charges with old news. A derivative of the straw man, usually, in any large-scale matter of high visibility, someone will make charges early on which can be or were already easily dealt with, a kind of investment for the future, should the matter not be so easily contained, where it can be foreseen. Have your own side raise a straw man issue and have it dealt with early on as part of the initial contingency plans. Subsequent charges, regardless of validity or new ground uncovered, can usually then be associated with the original charge and dismissed as simply being a rehash, without need to address current issues, so much the better where the opponent is or was involved with the original source. Establish and rely upon fallback positions. Using a minor matter or element of the facts, take the high road and confess with candor that some innocent mistake in hindsight was made, but the opponents have seized on the opportunity to blow it all out of proportion and imply greater criminalities, which just isn't so. Others can reinforce this on your behalf later and even publicly call for an end of the nonsense, because you have already done the right thing. Done properly, this can garner sympathy and respect for coming clean and owning up to your mistakes without addressing more serious issues. 12. Enigmas have no solution. Drawing upon the overall umbrella of events surrounding the crime and the multitude of players and events, paint the entire affair as too complex to solve. This causes those otherwise following the matter to begin to lose interest more quickly without having to address the actual issues. 13. Alice in Wonderland logic. Avoid discussion of the issues by reasoning backwards or with an apparent deductive logic, which forbears any actual material fact. Demand complete solutions. So this is number 14. Demand complete solutions. Avoid the issues by requiring opponents to solve the crime at hand completely, a ploy which works best with issues qualifying for Rule 10. For 15, fit the facts to alternate conclusions. This requires creative thinking unless the crime was planned with contingency conclusions in place. 16. Vanish evidence and witnesses. If it does not exist, it is not fact, and you won't have to address the issue. 17. Change the subject. Usually in connection with one of the other ploys listed here, find a way to sidetrack the discussion with bravest or controversial comments in hope of turning attention to a new, more manageable topic. This works especially well with companions who can argue with you over the new topic and polarize the discussion arena in order to avoid discussing more key issues. 18. Emotionalize, antagonize, and goad opponents. If you can't do anything else, chide and taunt your opponents and draw them into emotional responses, which will tend to make them look foolish and overly motivated, and generally render their material somewhat less coherent. Not only will you avoid discussing the issues in the first instant, but even if their emotional response addresses the issue, you can further avoid the issues by then focusing on how sensitive they are to the criticism. 19. Ignore proof presented. Demand impossible proofs. This is perhaps a variant of the play dumb rule. Regardless of what material may be presented by an opponent in public forums, claim the material irrelevant and demand proof that is impossible for the opponent to come by. It may exist, but not be at his disposal, or it may be something which is known to be safely destroyed or withheld, such as a murder weapon. In order to completely avoid discussing issues, it may be required that you to categorically deny and be critical of media or books as valid sources, deny that witnesses are acceptable, or even deny that statements made by government or other authorities have any meaning or relevance. 20. False evidence. Whenever possible, introduce new facts or clues designed and manufactured to conflict with opponent presentations as useful tools to neutralize sensitive ideas or impede resolution. This works best when the crime was designed with contingencies for purpose and the facts cannot be easily separated from the fabrications. 21. Call a grand jury, special prosecutor, or other empowered investigative body. Subvert the process to your benefit and effectively neutralize all sensitive issues without open discussion. Once convened, the evidence and testimony are required to be secret when properly handled. For instance, if you own the prosecuting attorney, you can assure a grand jury hears no useful evidence, and that the evidence is sealed and unavailable to subsequent investigators. Once a favorable verdict is achieved, the matter can be considered officially closed. Usually, this technique is applied to find the guilty innocent, but it can be also used to obtain charges when seeking to frame a victim. 22. Manufacture a new truth. Create own experts, groups, authors, leaders, or influence existing ones willing to forge new ground via scientific, investigative, or social research or testimony which concludes favorably. In this way, if you must actually address issues, you can do so authoritatively. 23. Create bigger distractions. If the above does not seem to be working to distract from sensitive issues or to prevent unwanted media coverage of unstoppable events such as trials, create bigger news stories or treat them as such to distract the multitudes. 24. Silence critics. If the above methods do not prevail, consider removing opponents from circulation by some definitive solution so that the need to address issues is removed entirely. This can be by their death, arrest, and detention, blackmail, or destruction of their character by release of blackmail information, or merely by destroying them financially, emotionally, or severely damaging their health. 25. Vanish. If you are a key holder of secrets or otherwise overly illuminated, and you think the heat is getting too hot, to avoid the issues, vacate the kitchen. All right. This one is by u/frog-face11. Biden is the only president in our country's history who has threatened American civilians with military force on American soil. So there's a post by this chick called Michaela, at Michaela Rose J, and it says in her post, why do we have a sitting president taunting its citizens into civil war? And why is he insinuating using the military against us? Does he plan on going full communist dictator? Because he will learn fast that America isn't Venezuela or China. China. So this one, I believe it's probably due to the 9/11 or whatnot, but it's by u/hangit-fire. And it says, jet fuel can't melt Saudi passports. Not once, but twice. Kind of curious about this one. What are they talking about? Oh yeah, because everything else melted, but not the passports. So one person is asking, have they ever said how many passports they found intact? Or was it just the one hijackers that conveniently made it to the ground when they were sifting for bone fragments? Okay, so this was at the World Trade Center site, and it was only one, says the one person. And this other guy says, well, I find that mighty convenient. And this other guy says, I read that only Ada's passport waved it to the ground among everything else that was going on. And somebody said, you have no way of knowing that. And Ian Moon said, I recently had someone tell me that it was perfectly reasonable for those buildings to have collapsed due to being hit in the upper quadrant because they were constructed mostly of air and were barely able to hold their own weight in the first place. They thought I was delusional for saying that the impact and resulting fire in the upper floors should not have been able to make both buildings or even one collapse into itself, all the way to the ground level. Their commitment to the argument was astounding. I tapped out. They weren't going to change my mind, and nothing was going to change theirs. So yeah, there's a lot of conspiracy theories or conspiracies about 9/11. Let's see what else we can find in here. This one says, did you know that America has the highest rate of children living in single-parent households in the world? That's interesting. So Bed Bath & Beyond CFO 52 is identified as man who jumped to his death from the 18th floor of New York City's Jenga Tower 2 days after firm announced plans to lay off 20% of staff and close 150 stores. Well, that's a pretty dire situation there. I've had nightmares about, falling to my death and such, and I really, really do hate those. It freaks me out. Freaky, very freaky. So apparently, 2 weeks before his death, he was being investigated for securities fraud and insider trading in the other subreddit also. Someone else is saying, I'm guessing, economy bad, senior executives killing themselves. Of course, but I'm curious about the point Op is trying to make. If you swipe, there's a screenshot presumably from 4chan, but I don't understand why it is included or what the message is. The other screenshot, it from Q, a while back, it was stated many executives would take their life. Seems pretty specific with the question mark and everything. Q is a Russian psyop. Stay away from that shit. You do grasp how common it is for executives to top themselves, right? They believe Q predict this because on the 2nd of February 2018, he made a post and said suicide. Totally logical, huh? Someone's saying, what am I even looking at here? So let's see what the second one is. Huh. Weird. You guys know anything about Q? I've heard this person mentioned before. Pretty creepy. Pretty creepy. There's a picture of Biden standing behind the podium, and there's a red background with, 2 Marines back there. It kind of makes him look like the Sith Lord. Dun dun dun. This one says, a funeral director in Australia says business has doubled. Well, that's intriguing. So, this guy says, we've had a very big spike in official excess mortality data at 20 to 16% for months, but the clot shot rate isn't that high. That's a definite lie. Someone said, BS. Bullshit. And then Astro Rocker 2001 says, submission statement. The government of Australia forced mandates on the population more than any other country. As of August 23rd, 2022, 97.9% of people aged 16 plus with at least one dose of the vaccine. The jab. So this one's a picture of German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock. So this says, freeze and starve for Ukraine. Well, what's this all about? Ina94061 says, also, don't take a shower to piss off Putin. Vagabond_Gray says, there's no way these leaders are so clueless of their actions. If they are so committed, then why don't they draft their own citizens? If there were any laws preventing it, then repeal it since there is sufficient political support. Something tells me that this is a ruse to cover up the coming economic collapse due to their incompetence and pin the disaster on someone else. We're going to find out if Jamie Demon's prediction was right or not. King Angeli says, would you rather pay higher prices for food or be drafted into World War III? Germany just said they're done with Russian oil. There's no economic collapse. Someone said, F this B. Celier said, hey, we will be okay. Russia just needs to settle down and stay in their lane. And Connoisseur of Bacon said, no, you. You guys, no fighting, no fighting. No fighting. So this one is by Biohacker. Says Andrew Tate, the future is based on enslavement. It's based on removing your freedoms under the guise of safety, telling you you're going to be safe, removing all your freedom as an individual to keep you believing the lies and paying taxes and being a good old slave. I wonder if this will play. It shows that there's a video on there. I wonder what it says. It's loading very slowly. Yeah. And it doesn't say how long it is. This is coming from podclips.com. 1 minute and 36 seconds.
That's what it's based on. It's based on removing your freedoms and the sense of safety. You're going to be safe, removing all your freedom as an individual. You're believing the lies and paying taxes and be a good slave until you die. That's what they need you to do. They need you to pay taxes and die. Not interested in anything else. As long as people start to wake up, as people start to think more freely, they're going to do more and more extreme measures to keep us in our place. And that's what's happening in real time. Corona, at the beginning, I actually believe may have been genuinely intended. Oh, maybe it's a disease, maybe it'll get out of control. After a month, from then on out, it was an experiment in control. That's all it was. After about a month, they said, no, okay, no one's really dying. Okay, how long can we keep these people in their house? You have a ruling family, I have a ruling family. They'll riot after a month. No, they won't. They won't. You know what? Let's really push the boat. Let's let the state next door open up fully. And let's keep this state closed and pretend that a virus respects state lines. And let's see if they riot then. Oh, it's been a month, they're still not rioting. These people are idiots. Let's do mask them. Why not? Let's do one. Let's do one. It's a big joke. It's a big joke to these people. And everyone's still out here complying.
People forget, one of my favorite things is there are certain organizations that said don't wear masks and they changed. There are certain organizations that said things like put a mask on while you have sex. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that was said that in hindsight, I think people will look at and say that doesn't make a lot of sense. But at the time, it was, what was said to people from an authoritative organization.
So, these are the views of we are Paradox Media. This was from Andrew Tate, who sounds like a pretty angry guy. What's going on, guy? Marjorie, Trailer Park Queen, auditioning for Season 1 of American Idol using fake stage name. Let's go back. Let's go back.
Sugar. Absolutely, California. My biggest worry right now is telling my work how I'm gonna miss Monday. Calling sick. Sorry, boss.
Now it's time for our energetic dancer, Stephanie Sugarman. Let's hope her bosses are watching. How are you? What do you do?
Cheese, so provolone and mozzarella.
You had to recommend a cheese to Randy to put on his hamburger. What did I say?
I don't see Knock Boots, H-Town.
Of course, please.
To the left, down. very, very outgoing, and you woke us for sure. I personally don't feel that you're the next American Idol.
Stephanie, you're not a very good singer.
Sorry?
I don't think you're a very good singer.
Your teeth.
In my expertise as a producer, having worked with some of the greatest singers ever to grace the planet, Mariah, Whitney, Aretha, Celine, all of these women, Stephanie, you're not a very good singer.
Stephanie wasn't great. She's company.
No, but I did tell him now that I'm on national television that
Well, tell them the good news is you're going to be back on Monday. No, Stephanie, thanks a lot. Yes or no? Yes or no?
No for Hollywood. No for Hollywood.
cheese.
Okay.
Cheese.
Stephanie, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
And as the talent in the audition room got worse, Simon's comments got nastier.
So you didn't say come to Hollywood.
Well, that means
That's it.
we know. She's Senator. Man. Hello? You have a twin.
I was just curious if I did make it coming to Hollywood because I think I have what it takes.
We said no.
We said no.
Why?
Because you're not good enough.
Because you're not good enough. You're not a good singer at all.
Here, because I'm the whole package right here. I got the looks, I got the style, and I'm the next Tina Marie or the Stephanie Sugarman right here. Let me tell you, good loving body, rockin' knockin' boots all night long. Make love to it. Well, I guess she's auditioning all over.
Stephanie. Oh, Stephanie. It's okay.
Listen, honey, auditions, you either get it or you don't. You go on, honey, you go on to the next audition. You take the trips.
We'll see you later.
We'll be coming to Hollywood, and I'll see you. And my millions.
Stephanie was not going to Hollywood.
She's not going to California. Let's see what people say. Marjorie Trailer Park Queen. Who is that? Anybody know? You takers? I have no idea. Oh, somebody says it looks a lot like her. I mean, that might be her, but it feels like there's a lot of missing steps between that and therefore she's clearly a George Soros plant. The simpler explanation would be that she's an attention-hungry idiot. She publicly humiliated herself back then in pursuit of attention, and then she crafted a new persona, went out and repeated the process in right-wing politics to more success. Considering Soros is a well-known scapegoat for the radical right, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is a member of the radical right, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Op's title is satire. Someone said, is it me or does Simon look like Charlie Sheen? Conspiracy. Yeah. I don't know about that one. Laws allow them to kill us. How the state will destroy our rights when the SHTF. So dealing with this subject has been quite difficult for Bill's words. He said both the concept of the state stripping you of everything and the SHTF concept have as many backgrounds as diverse interpretations. So trying to approach this from a single point of view is a complicated task. In my country, Venezuela, after 20 years of revolution, we've bottomed out and learned to live in situations we never imagined. So much so that I was able to write an article on survival techniques I never imagined myself using on a daily basis. Answer neither said, I suspect it's too late for us. The government already has too much power and will never give it up. More and more complex and restrictive laws will be written with the left and right completely divided. Americans will be left destitute to feed those in power. It's already this way in China, just a matter of time for other places. China. So, Omega Death says, well, so this transition to centrally programmable digital currency takes another step. So it says here that Starbucks starting from 1st October 2022, will only be accepting card, contactless, and Starbucks rewards payments. Please ask our team for further details. Someone says they should start taking Dogecoin. I don't do Starbucks. If you don't support our troops, I don't support you. And they won't send our soldiers cafe. As far as like things you can put in your MREs and such, or care packages overseas or whatnot, because they say they don't support the war. Well, don't support the war, support your troops. It's that simple. I'm Smoking Gone said, how much is that espresso and pubes? Content Cry said, we don't take pubes. I'm Smoking One. Racist. Starbucks sucks anyway. There's much better coffee out there. Never have, never will. Again, not the point. I know, but the fact that their coffee sucks makes it even easier to boycott their cashless ass. I smelled Starbucks when I read this. Now that's a conspiracy. One solar flare and it's all over from there. Life on the Earth slave farm. This is an old cat character from the books back when we were kids. And it shows this cat laying in bed. And it says, me thinking about how I have to work to make money to afford to live on a planet that I didn't even ask to be on. Poor person. So sad. So there's a decoration here from inside Miami International Airport. Gave this person the creeps. Oh, so my son's bringing me a Krabby Patty?
Do you want both?
Sure, thanks, son.
You're welcome.
I got 2 Krabby Patties.
After your show, can you make us some food?
I suppose.
Thank you, Mom.
You're welcome. Alright, Sonny.
What you doing on your show?
Reading.
Oh.
And I got 12 minutes left, so get the heck out of here. Can't you read? There's a sign right there that says stay out between these hours. Love you too, son. Alright, this decoration inside Miami International Airport gave me the creeps. It feels like it has some kind of symbolism that I don't quite get. What do you think? It's actually kind of pretty looking, but it looks like a person standing in the middle of some trees, and I don't know. I like it. I think it's beautiful. Let's see what the peeps are saying. What are the peeps saying in the comments? It shows 3 comments, but there's only one. Since you're mentioning Miami, did you know the word Ilea means pig in a blanket? Oh. U/awakening_555. Look into all of these topics. Mysticism, secretism, astrology, astrotheology, mythology, psychedelics, hyperdimensionality, transcendental meditation, raising the chrism, or sacred secretion, the Tao, religious doctrines, metaphysics, magnetism, field theory, electricity, fractal mathematics. And there's a red arrow in between that column and this other one. Astronomy, geology, philosophy, psychology, standard physics, quantum physics, theoretical physics, standard history, esoteric history, occult history, secret societies, royal bloodlines, central banking, alchemy, and chemistry. Don't trust anyone. It's up to you to figure it out. Make up your own mind, man. Oh, that's kind of creepy. Oh, wow. So there's a picture. Looks like a Russian soldier or whatnot. It shows the CPAC 2021, where the podium is out there in the middle, and it's totally shaped like this patch that is on this soldier's shirt. Little underscore ad underscore 9650 said, dude, fuck off with this shit. And then Dasani Punk or something is pretty nice. Most Billy to get along with a community of farmers or worse, spend their winnings funding a national food resilience program. The company logo, complete with 3 crucifixes, suggests their services are geared more toward Christian evangelist preppers and red state American than billionaire tech bros playing out sci-fi scenarios. There's something much more whimsical about the facilities in which most of the billionaires, or more accurately, aspiring billionaires, actually invest. Dizzy Bean says, they'll be safe in their orange bunkers, but as society, our rural folk will thrive. OG Brandflake said, I read this exact same article by the same guy like 3 years ago. Way to go, recycling old content, Guardian. So basically, this article is just a fucking advert. This is an edited extract from Survival of the Richest by Douglas Rushkoff, published by Scribe. To support The Guardian and Observer, order your copy of theguardianbookshop.com. Delivery charges may apply. And here's the 2018 article. So he shows the article. Recycling stuff. Oh, there's a bunch of guys on a board and it says the Shady Bunch. Investigation.org/infoword.mail. Oh, wow. Smart thermostat locks customers out, declares energy emergency. Temperature locked temporarily during energy emergency. Due to rare energy emergency that may affect the local energy grid, your temperature slider has been changed from 8 p.m. to 8 p.m. because you enrolled in a community energy savings program. To opt out, contact Excel. Excel Energy Central at Jacoby Central at excelenergy.com. But why, Joe? Why? Uh-oh. What is this about? Hey, Canada, how's your free healthcare going? So, Possum reviews. After assisted suicide was legalized in Canada. Oh, it just went away because this video is about to start. I wonder how long it is. When did they do that? This was posted 18 hours ago. It's loading. It's loading. How long is it gonna take? I don't even know if we have time for this because we're almost out of here in about 7 minutes. I wonder if we buffered or something. Preppers don't want to have to learn.
VA's Canada. I was looking for help. Hey, I got TBI. Hey, I got PTSD. I need a little assistance. And you know what the call taker at the VAC said? Hey there, buddy. How about your fucking suck-star rifle? Well, kind of. Because the call taker at the VAC told this veteran who was looking for help that he should look into MAID, medical assistance in dying. Which, if you're not sure what that means, is big old fancy words for euthanasia. Euthanasia! Euthanasia! Euthanasia makes you kill your pet. Except for you. You get to you get to hit your own power switch. America's running around spending all this money trying to save vets, and Canada's just up there in the north, just picking them off like it's some sort of carnival game. Now, normal people would probably say, well, that's probably a bad idea. You know, telling a guy looking for help for some mental situations is a good idea. Is it just, and not the VAC in Canada? You know, because after this veteran said, no, thank you, I don't want to talk about that anymore. I want help, not the end. This person kept bringing it up. Kept saying, are you sure? Are you sure you don't want to just take that little piece of steel? Just, just tell me how it tastes. Tell me how it tastes over the fucking phone. And yeah, I'm using finger guns because over the phone, this doofus told the veteran, I mean, hey, it's better than blowing your brains out or running your car into something. And if that isn't a dude, I swear to God, that's man speak right there. A lady would be at least a little bit more emotionally available to just blurt out, hey, looking for help? Some mental help? Well, you should just off yourself. But here, let me help you. Let me help you. blow your brains out, right? What emotionally insensitive idiot. This guy must think that effing veterans one at a time is just his way of giving back to the Canadian government and saving them hundreds of thousands of dollars each year in medical costs. I stick around when you can just end it and we won't have to pay your medical bills from now until eternity. You won't be able to collect taxes on you. Dang. But at least you won't be able to spend more money on your worthless ass. Oh, but we're only just getting started. Because after this veteran says, no, listen, shut up, I don't want that. This call taker goes on and says, oh, but I've helped another veteran do it. And if that doesn't set a fire inside you, I don't know what will. Now you think this person would just get their sick pics with taking a veteran's life. But you know what? He also told this veteran that called in, oh yeah, that guy that I assisted in hitting the off button permanently, we also got counseling for his children. Yes. Children. Because nothing says like assisting a veteran mentally, physically, emotionally, etc. like talking him into freaking going downtown for one last ride and then saying bye to his family. Who would want to stick around for that? Who would want to try and salvage a life for their children? Their freaking children. No. We're just going to give them counseling. That'll be fine. I mean, it's better than their jobs, right? Because that's the train of thought. Fuck your hair here, right? We've got a guy in VAC making calls, offering veterans assistance in not living anymore, and then talking about how he's already succeeded. Oh my God, people must be upset. People must be really mad. Oh, you would think. Unfortunately, nobody knew about this until the veteran was talking this fucking psycho over the phone, made multiple complaints to the VAC. And then when they didn't get the ball rolling, good job. And now looking into that one, VAC, he goes to the press. And the press goes, holy shit, this is a big deal. What's going on, VAC? And the VAC says, Mr. Lawrence McGanley, the head of the VAC, is looking into it. He takes these things very seriously. Once we had discovered that this occurred, we immediately took action and apologized to the veteran. Oh, hey there, sorry, bud. Didn't mean to die and take that forever sleep instead of, actually helping you and offering a solution to your mental anguish and shit that we put you through because, we shoved you overseas, but now that you're home, it'd really be great if you could just, we can't see it no more, but,
I like that guy's attitude. He's got the right thing going on there. Yeah, that's pretty sad, man. That person should be fired. Anyways, thank you once again for joining me this weekend on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Hope I didn't put you to sleep with story time, but if I did, maybe that last guy we had on here woke your ass up. Thank you to all of our friends on We Are Paradox Media's KPNL Radio, Facebook, Twitter, iHeartRadio, and wherever else you may be listening beyond the universe tonight. Can't wait to do it again next weekend. We got our friends from Tangenticoa Parish Paranormal Society. Lindy and crew are coming on, and we got a new member that's coming along with them. And then next Sunday, Netflix and Chill with Master Beef and Big Woo. It's gonna be a good weekend. You guys make sure you come on in, come on over, listen to our podcast. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be amazing. Don't forget, you guys, we're all in this together. Together, we can make the world a little better. And together, my friends, we are Paradox Media because without you, there is no us. Until next time, nighty-night, love and light to all of my listeners out there. I hope you guys have a wonderful remainder of your weekend. Enjoy food. Labor Day. Try not to labor. Until then, we'll see you back here, same time, same baddie place.